are you making the 5 biggest startup mistakes in fundraising? Now, what are they? So the first thing we generally see in the market is that lots of startups with great ideas and very, very ambitious to really get out there and start up and scale up are very desperate to raise funds. So they end up falling into the trap of taking money from anyone who will give it to them. And why I say this is a bit of a trap is that today that person might seem like a great idea, investing you and giving you money that you need. But tomorrow, once you've gone through fundraising rounds and you've got the money that you require and you've actually started to lift this company off the ground and gain momentum, some of the investors will not be ideal investors, either because they don't know enough about your business, because they ask too many questions that perhaps then stall you from making progress in the business. Perhaps they decide later on that they want to pull their money out and ask for a return of their money. We've actually seen this a number of times. So it's really important to have those discussions early on with your investors about why they want to invest, what value can they bring to the table as investors, and then whether it's they want to see a quick return, because the reality is that they've put in money today, they're not going to be making dividends or be able to pull it out tomorrow. And so these are some conversations that you need to be having with investors. And remember, it's all about smart money, and smart money is where the investor that's giving you money has real value to add to the company that he's investing in. Now, raising too much money too early on, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is when you raise money, you need to give equity in return. So you may not be giving equity today as of today's date, but you will be giving equity in the future. And what happens is, as you're giving a stake of your company, you're reducing or watering down the amount of ownership that you and other shareholders may have in the company. So you always need to be making sure and making certain that you understand the implications of raising money and what that means in terms of ownership down the track. And the way we track this is through a cap table. So I think most of you, if you're startups or entrepreneurs or already started to fundraise, you know what a cap table is. And we will look at that later on in this presentation as well. So the third biggest mistake I see is that some startups don't have a cap table at all. Or if they have one, it's not really thought through. And so they can't really clearly see what the effects of raising money from different shareholders is and where what the ownership split will look like down the track. So it's very important to have a cap table as soon as you start to raise funds from investors. The fourth mistake is giving out fundraising notes without the consideration or considering the impact of those. So what we see as well is that, people will go into Y Combinator or they'll go into some other websites and they download a safe note without looking at what the terms or the clauses are in that. They simply print that off, send it to an investor and get them to sign. That's all well and good today. But what happens down the track? What happens down the track when that investor says, but hey, in that safe note, there's a most favorable nation clause, which means if you've given anybody else at more favorable terms than me, they should also apply to me. Or you gave me a discount and your discount was 20%. Or, for example, there could be in a safe note or convertible note a term which says if you haven't reached a particular milestone within a set period of time, that the money could be paid back. So, are you thinking about what is in that safe note or convertible note? It's not just a case of raising money for the sake of it and printing off a note, giving it to an investor, getting his signature and money, and the rest is bygones. It's, in fact, a very calculated process, and it's one that needs to be. So that's another mistake we see lots of startups make in fundraising. And the fifth one is giving up too much control of the company because you don't understand the impact of certain investor clauses. So again, this is very much about having the knowledge of what clauses are in the contracts and what you've actually negotiated with an investor. So perhaps not in the very early stages, but as you progress through the startup rounds, which we'll go through in due course as well, you'll have more savvy investors, for example, a venture capital perhaps, where they are very clear and specific on their involvement in the fundraising rounds and the scope of their involvement. If you've had any other experiences or any other mistakes that perhaps I've not touched on, but you want to share either with the audience or with myself, please put it in the chat box and I'll have a chance to look at that a little later on.